Good to be back at it this morning. Guys came back yesterday. We had kind of a shakeout, lift and run. Some of the kids got an opportunity to go home. Some of the guys stuck around here and relaxed. And obviously our coaches were able to get out and do some recruiting. That's always good to do after a win. And it was exciting to kind of get out and see some different guys. I got out early in the week, and then the rest of the coaching staff kind of went out later in the week. And it was good. Timing was right for us. I think we're going to get a couple guys back that we didn't have against Eastern Washington and get ready to go into league play. I mean, this is what you play for. I think that's sometimes that gets lost a little bit in all the conference realignment and, our kind of unique schedule this year where we play 5 games before we play a league game. But at the end of the day, one of the things I reminded these guys is that you look at San Jose State from a year ago, they were 1-5. 1-5, at this point in the season basically for them last year. And it ripped off a bunch of wins, including beating UNLV. And then, through some miraculous tiebreaker, the Mountain West decided Boise State was going to play in the championship game instead of San Jose State. But Coach Brennan got his job and his shot at Arizona regardless of that, so good for him. And maybe the Mountain West, regrets that decision. I don't know. But we'll see. Looking at the San Jose State Spartans, man, I tell you what's impressive. You look at the teams like New Mexico is playing pretty good football right now. They're really explosive on offense, and I reference them because you got a guy like Bronco Mendenhall that's a very experienced head football coach at the FBS level. And even though maybe the results haven't been exactly what they want on the field, you can see the progress that's being made there. And then you look at what Coach Ken's doing, and obviously his tradition of success at a place like Navy, and just who he is as a person and a coach. And they're not missing a beat. I mean, the ability for him to evolve, going from traditionally an option-based offense to a wide open throwing offense, just shows you, hey, ball coaches are ball coaches. And he's done a good job of kind of transitioning, taking advantage of the talent there. Had a relationship with Stutzman, who's the offensive coordinator, who has a background in both the run and shoot and the air raid. And they are explosive on offense. They sling it around. I mean, they've got the number 1 receiver in the country in terms of yards and probably targets too. I mean, they throw the ball to Nash a lot. But I really am impressed with the Brown kid, the quarterback. I think they've done a really good job of building an offense that fits him. And even though he's not a big guy in stature, they kind of spread the line splits out a little bit, give him some natural throwing lanes. He knows where he's going with the ball. He gets it out of his hands quick. They're very, very efficient in the pass game. Those are kind of the main guys on that side. On defense, they've got a problematic guy, their nose, number 42. Like he's not very big, but he is active and he kind of is all over the place. And that's kind of what they do on defense. They muddy things up at the line of scrimmage and make it hard, especially in some of the inside zone stuff to really be able to get great push because it's hard to hit a moving target. And so they do a good job of muddying stuff up inside there. I like their linebackers. They're both really good players. They're different types of builds. Pollard, number 10. Kind of a 6'1", 195-pound guy, really undersized, but super athletic and very active. And then Cobbs is a longer, more physical guy. I think he leads their team in sacks, number 8. And so they're kind of a nice 1-2 punch right there at the second level of the defense. And then on special teams, really aggressive. Like against Washington State 2 weeks ago, they stole 2 possessions, one on a fake punt and one on a surprise onside kick. They've got explosive guys in the return game. And one thing that I do think is interesting is if you look at just kind of where everybody's at in league play right now, looking at like the league stats, you kind of look at it and you go, I think these are 2 fairly evenly matched teams. Their strengths are different than our strengths. They're obviously more of a throwing team than we are, but statistically there's a lot of similarities between where the 2 teams are at this stage in the season. And so I'm excited to get into Mountain West play, excited to go down to San Jose and enjoy our nice little drive down through Northern California and go play our tails off, see what happens. So happy to take any questions.
What were kind of the objectives during the bye week? How often did you guys practice as like a full roster?
Yeah, so we practiced Monday, which was kind of more like a regular Monday for our veteran guys, so just helmets and spiders. But we had the young guys wear full pads, so they had like a rookie scrimmage almost at the end there, so they got to play some real football. Tuesday and Wednesday we treated as a bonus Tuesday and bonus Wednesday, so very similar to what a normal Tuesday and a little bit reduced, very similar to what a normal Tuesday and Wednesday would be in terms of preparation. Mixed downs and coverage units on Tuesday, third down red zone, and 2 minute on on Wednesday with some rookie scrimmage stuff mixed in. So we went those 3 days. We had a lift and a team building activity on Thursday, and then they got a couple days off.
Was there anything in particular you were looking for during those bye-week practices?
Well, I think for us, kind of our theme was, attention to detail, the small things that are going to become, that have already hurt us in some ways, the penalties and some of those types of things. So really focusing on the detail, attention to detail, and a part of that is discipline, right? Doing the things that need to be done in the moment they need to be done the right way, and then continuing to build trust. I had some conversations with some guys in our organization that are not necessarily have their feet in the weeds all the time. They're guys that are not coaching a position or coordinating, and they just are kind of on the periphery. They can oftentimes those guys can really see the big picture. They're not emotionally attached, so they're not making judgments about, well, I love this kid and I want him to be good. Is he really good or not? And one of the things that both those individuals brought up, independent of one another, was just like how unique our roster is, right? And how different. And I think this is a case for a lot of places now. How different it is to have these guys at all different stages in their. You got these true freshmen that are coming in trying to figure out what college football is today. We've got guys like Spencer Lovell, who's in his 7th year of college, who's on his 4th university, and this is kind of his last rodeo. And then there's everybody in between. Some guys are here because it didn't work out somewhere else. Some guys are here because this is their best or last opportunity. And then the guys that did stay, a lot of those guys were guys that, maybe, Jay didn't take with him to Colorado State, and that damages them somehow, And so it's just a really unique roster, and I bring all that up because the trust is still something that we worked on during the course of the bye week, and doing some activities that are a little bit out of the box to try to develop that. And so those were kind of the themes: it's discipline, details, and trust.
You guys have run for more than 200 yards through the last 4 games, more than 300 last week. I guess what's been the biggest key to the improved running offense?
Well, I think that there's a variety. Number one, I think we got a quarterback that's a run threat, and that always helps your run game. And I think that's hard to do if you don't have a guy that they know can pull it. So they've got to account for Belu in the run game, which I think helps the rest of our guys. I think we've done a really good job blocking on the perimeter, and I think that's where a lot of our explosives came against Eastern, and that was good to see. So I think that's credit goes to Coach Price and the wide receivers who didn't come here to block, but they're out there doing the dirty work. And so I think those are two things that stand out, is that we've been able to attack the perimeter of defenses, and they have to defend our quarterback in the run game. And by accounting for that extra body in the run game, sometimes they're going to be a gap short maybe in the conventional run stuff. So, and I think we have good runners. I really do. And Brian and Mike Lynch, who kind of primarily do our run game stuff, those guys do a fantastic job in prepping our run game.
They have a top 10 passing offense in the nation. I guess what's the biggest key to trying to slow down that unit?
Well, I don't know that you're going to stop them from getting yards. I think that this is going to be kind of one of those games where people are going to do what they're going to do, right? They're really good in pass defense. Well, one of the reasons they're really good in pass defense, they max drop a lot. Well, that's not going to be good in terms of the matchup for us, right? Let's go ahead and max drop. That's not great for trying to stop the run. So I think that kind of that give and take, right? What are we going to do to slow them down and not give them explosive plays in the pass game, and what are they going to do to mitigate some of the strengths that we have in the run game? And I think that's going to be a cool thing to watch is, hey, how are they changing their identity? Are they doing something different? In our case, I think we've got to really do a good job of not giving Brown a pre-snap picture. We've got to disguise well. We've got to hold that disguise. They spend a lot of time. They kind of get lined up in their formation, and they spend a lot of time at the line of scrimmage. So they're a no-huddle offense, but they don't have really up-tempo style. And really what they're doing is they're trying to see what you're doing. And because, for till 15 seconds in the play clock, Stutz can be talking to Brown the whole time going, hey, man, I think they're in quarters here. I like the chop route against the safety into the boundary. There you go. So and I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. And this is me talking anecdotally. I don't know that, but that's kind of what it appears like to me.
They do create a lot of turnovers. I don't know if because they're dropping all their guys back, but 12 turnovers, 12 takeaways in their first 4 games, so 3 per game. What's led to their success in takeaways?
They attack the ball. There's been some things that are kind of unique, like bad snaps and stuff like that have contributed to some of that. But I do think that they give you a variety of tough coverage looks because you don't always know where it's going to be. And so some of the disguise stuff that we talked about earlier, that's been a big part of it. And it's, a lot of interceptions, but also some fumbles. They've turned the ball over a decent amount too. And I think that's kind of been one of those unique things. Well, I talked to our team about that, talk about details. Or let's talk about turnover margin. Hey, we're -2. Guess who's number 1 in the league? UNLV, they're +8. Okay, so, you want to be at the top of the league, you win the turnover margin, right? All right, let's talk about some other things that matter, right? Like third downs, okay? We've been pretty good on offense on third downs. We need to be better on defense. Let's talk about red zone. We've been pretty good in both of those areas, right? But penalties, we're near the bottom of the league in terms of number of penalties that we have and penalty yards. And so, talk about the details and the discipline, where can we improve incrementally? And I'm not saying we're not going to get penalties or we're not going to not to turn the ball over. But if we can, in this 6-game stretch, if we can flip the script on the turnover margin, taking those 5 previous games out of it, can we be in the plus range in turnover margin in these next 6 games? I think that will be a huge determining factor on how successful this 6-game stretch is for us, as well as reducing the number of penalties. We're averaging around 9 a game. Hey, can we reduce that to 6 a game? Penalties are going to happen, but can we get that down to 6? That's how close we are, and that's what it's going to take for us to be successful in this stretch against some really good teams.
Coach, top 5 in terms of third down conversion rate in the nation. What's allowed y'all to be so effective on that down, especially?
Here's where we've been good. We've been good on third and short, and then we've been ironically good on third and long. Third and medium, we haven't been exceptional. And you think back to, keeping drives alive a lot of times after getting penalties, whether that was against Troy, Georgia Southern, even back to the SMU game, we were able to convert some third and longs, which is not easy to do. And I think that, especially teams that play man, Matt has had some really good answers for us in those situations.
How important will it be to try and generate a pass rush against this pass-heavy offense?
Well, I think double-edged sword. You're putting extra guys after this guy, and he gets the ball out of his hands. That means you're short on the back end. So I think that's always something you pay attention to. It's not something you want against this style. I don't think you want to live and die bringing pressure. I think you want to mix it up, be timely when you do bring it, and make sure that you're bringing more than they can block if you do. So, because a lot of people pressure this guy, but he gets the ball out really fast. He knows where he's going, and it hasn't always worked out really well for him.
What have been your thoughts just on how you guys have been able to pressure with 4 guys?
I think we've been average. I would have thought we would have been better. And so hopefully that's something that, again, we had time to work on throughout the course of the bye week. And, I felt like we were going to have some advantages in some places that it really hasn't materialized. And I still think that we have the talent and ability to do that. We've just got to be a little bit more deliberate about how we approach it.
You guys do start Mountain West play. I mean, is it the goal to go out and win a Mountain West championship? Is that a realistic thing in your mind?
I just pointed it out, right? You got 1-5. San Jose State should have been in the championship game a year ago. So, is it out of the realm of possibility? No. I mean, I just don't see, we're going to play some really good teams. And we're going to have some tough environments to go in to play some of those teams. But everybody else has got to play some good teams too. And so I can't worry about what anybody else is doing. I'm really focused on, let's see if we can go play a really good San Jose State team. I think this is the team that's probably the most surprising in the league right now, right? I think everybody knew Boise had a good roster, UNLV had a good roster. Those maybe aren't the biggest surprises, but I'd say, the success and the emergence of San Jose State with kind of the coaching change and the style change on offense has been maybe the biggest surprise so far in terms of how they played. So I think they're in the mix for the championship too. So, I mean, it's a new season.
When you look at Chris Smalley moving over to offense, I guess, how did that conversation start? Why was he selected in particular?
Well, body type and background in high school playing the position. So that was kind of hey, this guy, I think, not getting a ton of reps on defense. Let's see if he can help us on offense. So that seemed like kind of a logical thing. He's tough, he's physical, he's smart, he cares. So that was, and I think this bye week is coming at a good time for him too, so that he can get some more reps in that role.
The reason you moved him was Jace. I mean, is there an update on his availability?
Yeah, I'm hoping. Honestly, I would say he's probably another 3 to 4 weeks is what we're looking at here, and so it's going to be a little bit of a long-term thing with him.
And that's a situation that required surgery, or?
I'm not going to talk about a guy's medical status. You can ask Jace if he wants to talk about it.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. I can tell you it's not available.
Okay. What about Caden?
There's this thing called FERPA and HIPAA. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
In terms of Caden's availability with the elbow, is he still long-term? Or
No, I think there's a chance he can play this week. We kind of have to wait. He's got this specialized brace that they had to order for him, and unfortunately, UPS is a little slow or whatever, so we're waiting on that. Hopefully, we'll have that this afternoon, and we can at least get him practicing this week.
And then Drew didn't play last game as well. What was his ailment?
I think he'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the offensive lineman as well, who left the Eastern game.
Yeah, I think they'll be both fine. Yeah.
I mean, we do see a lot of people like redshirting now after the first 4 or 5
Yeah,
games.
it's been in the back of my mind.
Has that situation happened?
Well, we got through 5, so we're good. You know.
But you haven't had anybody approach you and take
No,
that?
I'm sure, like like anywhere or anything, any line of work, hey, this is a trend. Kids are paying attention to that trend, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that those types of things aren't going to happen at Nevada at some point. But I think being really transparent and honest and heavily involved in the recruiting process is really important for a head coach. That you can't let side deals or whatever that, things that are perceived as I'm getting X and no, hey, we're very clear. There's, you deal with this with our collective. This is what we're doing. Everything's on the table. We meet our obligations in a timely fashion. And then if it's not enough, it's not enough. Like I can't get hung up on how an 18 to 22-year-old is going to make a decision on what's best for their future.
What have your thoughts just been on Mountain West play? I know you mentioned San Jose State a little bit, but just the rest of the league and the.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, Boise and UNLV, I think, are like at the top of the league. I mean, there's no question about it. And I think that and they played a tough schedule too. I mean, it's not like they played cupcakes all the way through, and so I think that's been kind of impressive to see how those two teams have elevated. And then I think there's kind of this group in the middle, right? That's kind of anybody could beat anybody, and I'd like to think that we're kind of in that group. And then there's always going to be a group kind of at the bottom of the conference where they're going to struggle a little bit. And I think you see Like I think the Air Force game was a little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know that Air Force would go into Laramie and knock them off, but that a team that struggled as much as they have on offense in Wyoming was able to put up that many points against a ground control team. That's usually going to take some time. You think about it, like as explosive as San Jose is on offense, they scored 17 points at Air Force, and so I just don't see a big separation talent-wise when you get kind of past those top two rosters. But they and at the end of the day, they still got to show up, because Georgia decided they wanted to play football at halftime, right? So, it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody, and that's kind of the interesting thing about this.
Obviously, it was a busy week last week with realignment, and Mountain West did lose one school, but it seems like it has a stable footing moving forward. I guess just what were your thoughts on getting some clarity on the Mountain West is going to exist, 10 years from now?
Yeah, you think so? Yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully,
we got two. Here's my thing.
2030.
Here's kind of the way I look at this, right? We got 2 more years in whatever this weird agreement is that we have with people that we're divorced but we're living in the same house. Okay, that's what we're doing. All right, so that's ridiculous to me, right? Just move on if this is what we're going to do. But if we're not, that's fine. Okay, so maybe certain teams won't have as loud a voice at the table at the conference meetings. Maybe that's what's going to come of this. But by the same token, again, there's 2 more years. 2 more years for the Pac-12 to meddle and do what they want to do. 2 more years for the Mountain West to figure out what we're going to do. What's this going to look like in 2 years? If you have that answer, you're in good shape, man. You're gonna do well. You get a crystal ball.
I think they have threatcasters out there now.
That's what I hear. They hired one. The Mountain West had one. This threat was evidently not identified. I don't know. So. Yeah, I think that's again, decisions are made way above my pay grade in that regard, and I think there's still a lot of things that are going to happen before whatever this is. I actually think it's going to be more like a decade, even though there's still going to be this movement. And part of the reason is because the fallout of the court decision, that's the House decision that hasn't even been finalized yet, doesn't even begin then. And then everybody's got this 10 years that they're going to pay this money out. You got to get to 2032. That's what the race is, right? I mean, I think the important thing for us, and again, leagues are leagues. That's great. But for us, we've got to make sure that whatever that second tier is below the group of 4 or whatever they're going to be called, that we're in that, where we got a chance to get into the playoff every year. And right now, our best chance to do that is to be in the Mountain West Conference. And so from that standpoint, I think it gives us some clarity and some stability, and I think that's a good thing. And I think it's a regional conference that makes sense. We should be playing Utah State and Wyoming And obviously it's good that UNLV stayed in the conference. And so I think those things are positive, and we just got to keep pushing forward and looking around the corner and seeing what's next, because this ain't over.
It does sound like all the Mountain West schools are going to get some money here. I mean, if you put in your request with Stephanie.
My request has been in since the day I took the job. So I think I'm on the record that we need to do more for football, and hopefully this will be one of the ways that we can start to make that happen.
What foundation do you feel like you guys have set with your first 5 games as you get ready for conference play?
I think we found out a little bit of who we are. I think our what's the key to our success right now in this 2024 edition of the Wolfpack is, hey, we've got to establish the run. We can't drop back and throw the ball 35 times. That's not going to be good for us. All right, we've got to play really, really hard and really sound on defense and eliminate explosives. In order for us to get better, we've got to minimize our penalties and do a better job in the turnover margin. Like that's going to be the things that I think you got to pay attention to. Are we becoming a more disciplined football team, meaning we're taking care of the ball better, we're not penalizing ourselves as much, and are we becoming a more opportunistic football team? And one of the things that you mentioned earlier about affecting the quarterback, well, affecting the quarterback leads directly to turnovers. And best example I can give you is just what happened 2 Saturdays ago out there on Mike Coates' pick. I mean, the quarterback's getting hit by 2 guys, the ball comes out fluttering and tips and overthrows, right? And so I think those are things that we've got to do a better job, that, hey, this will lead to this, and this hopefully leads to this. And that was kind of my message, right? One of the big picture things that we can control. Let's minimize our penalties. Let's get better in the turnover margin. Let's keep kicking butt on third down percentage on offense. Let's get a little bit incrementally better on defense, and let's keep doing both offense and defense what we've been doing in the red zone, which is holding teams to field goals and scoring touchdowns.
When you look at the penalties, I mean, outside of like personal fouls or emotional penalties, I guess what's been the biggest issue with maybe like holds or hands to the face? Or
Hands to the face has been one that's been called a lot this year, not just with us. And so clearly that was a point of emphasis, and that's something that's happening more and more. And that comes down to details, right? I mean, it's hand placement, and that's a core fundamental on the offensive line, but it happens a lot on the defensive line too. And so, my example would be, hey, instead of bull rushing the guy and going down the middle of him, how about work an edge, and then your hand won't slide up into the guy's face mask and potentially give them a free 15. So those are the emphasis things, right, that you're trying to get better at.
So you're busting there and back?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
Any more questions, Coach?
Just what have you liked out of the offensive line through these first 5 games?
I think they've gotten better and better. I really do. I mean, I think obviously the Minnesota week was a rough week. And again, I don't think I helped them a whole lot in terms of, giving us better answers and protection. But, they would prefer to run block too, trust me. And so establishing that ground game, it doesn't just help our offense as a whole and Lou to be more comfortable, but it helps our offensive line too, because those guys aren't just gearing up and rushing the passer. And so leaning on our ability to establish the run game and letting everything else evolve off of that is kind of what we've got to do. That's kind of our recipe for success on offense.
All right, anything else? No? Coach, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.